Welcome everyone to another Saturday morning of the Art Clinic Online. I'm here with a bunch of incredible artists this morning, so this is super exciting for me. I'm going to start off by introducing my good friend Michael Janis, who has been one of our earliest Art Clinic Online contributors. So when you go back into the Art Clinic Online archives, you're going to have to scroll way back, or just find on the scroll bar on the side. We can just do it alphabetically by name. But anyway, go take a look at Michael Janis's incredible work. He, I think, was one of the people that put us on the map as a legitimate place to watch DC artists at their best. I know Michael from countless shows in Miami where we exhibited with Elita Anderson, our projects, and the great Lenny Campello, who is also a contributor to our program. But I want to say thank you, Michael, for bringing us in another amazing artist this Saturday morning. So I will pass a torch to you so you can introduce Chris Combs.
Thanks, Jordan. Today on ACO, our special guest is Chris Combs, who is my neighbor at Otis Street Arts Project. Chris is a DC and Mount Rainier based new media artist who makes amazing interactive sculptures that use and question technology. His work mixes electronics, software, found material, and often responds to whoever's standing in front of it using sensors or facial recognition. I know a lot of people here at Art Clinic Online are painters, but Chris's work challenges the way we think about art. I mean, he makes these wonderfully weird, wired, alive sculpture, artwork that blinks and listens and sometimes talks back. His pieces might flash vintage ads or follow your movement or quietly watch you the way your phone does. But in Chris's world, it's all handmade and thoughtful and more than a little bit funny. So great about his work is that it's not about machines taking over art. It's about artists taking technology back. His work can be seen as an intersection of art and interactive design and engineering. He builds his own circuits, he wires his own code, writes his own code. He uses technology like one might use another brush or another palette. And in a time when everything's getting more digital, Chris's work reminds us that the artist's hand and the curiosity drives it all. His art connects our analog hearts to a wired up world that we live in. So, in our increasingly digital landscape, technology seems to be the root of disconnect, but he turns our attention to the different moments when we're something that surprises and delights us and connects us all. So, the last month he was creating a show that was at the part of his residency at Sanford University or Sanford Underground Research Facility at the bottom of a former gold mine in South Dakota. And his show is at South Dakota's Black Hills University. Okay, and he explores science's strangest mystery, the neutrino, which is something that's invisible and omnipresent and vanishingly tiny through interactive machines. So closer to home, Chris will also be at Old Town Alexandria's Athenaeum with a huge interactive piece that we were just talking about, a 4 foot diameter sculpture of steel that hangs above his studio and above his head like a sword of Damocles. And it's got a Siri-like assistant that can make apparently helpful suggestions for you, kind of like Janet from The Good Place, but often very uncalled for and somewhat vexing. You can also catch Chris's work at DIY at the district's MLK library and soon at Rhizome DC, MPA's Photogenesis, and the Montpelier Center juried show. So I'm inviting you all to please welcome my neighbor and brilliant inventive artist, Chris Combs, and hear how his work bridges the gap between physical and digital art. Chris.
Michael, that was a heck of an introduction. I'll see if I can live up to that. So I'm here in my studio right now. You can see I've got a couple of kind of finished pieces on the wall behind me. We'll talk about those more. I'm going to switch over to some slides just so we can get some big pictures because I think we all want visuals. So let me fuss around with my computer for a second here. All right, cool. A picture of me in front of me. Cool. There's my Instagram, my website. You can feel free, if I am being boring, to go to my website and look at the cool pictures there instead. But here's some pictures. Oh, I guess a little bio stuff. Sorry, boring me section. My background is I studied photo and I did that for a while. It was fun. I got to work at Nat Geo for a while. That was a glorious hot mess, as many people may know. And I started learning electronics as a hobby. And then I did go to the Corcoran eons ago for photojournalism. And I got back into my art stuff later on with my electronics hobby. That's enough. Cool. I'm at a street arts project now. Let me show you some artworks. This one is called Elysium. So this is a found object frame that I constructed with some well-used 2x4s and a wire grid. And the wire grid I found walking one day. I like walking around and scavenging stuff. So I found this wire grid by the side of the road, and it was kind of folded up and decrepit. And I noticed when I picked it up, which I don't know why I picked up this sharp wire grid, but I did. And it had a tree kind of growing through it. And I felt like the tree, it was interesting to me that the wire grid was on the side of the road by the trash, but the tree was not. So I don't know. I thought it kind of paired well with this idea of, like, for me, of just these slowly waving grasses. I'm going to try the video out here. So let's see. So it's just slow motion waving grasses. I filmed these in Wilmington, Delaware, along their river walk, which is a beautiful, at least, except in winter maybe, but well, beautiful, but very cold in the winter. A beautiful opportunity to just really just kind of be in the middle of a wetland, of an estuary. And I loved these grasses, and I felt like, for me, I could pair these materials together and end up with this thing that kind of seemed unattainable, like this beautiful place you want to be, and it's gonna be walled off from you. But as you look a little closer, maybe the wall is a bit porous. So the screen is a pinball screen, believe it or not. If you're playing a newish pinball machine, it has like a cool scoreboard above the board, above the main play field, where all the ball's knocking around. You look up, get your score. The thing you get your score on these days is like a full HD kind of TV sort of thing. So I got a bunch of those and hacked them up and put it with a little video player, and then it's my own footage, and that's the piece. Elysium. Here's a piece that some folks might have seen out at MoCA Arlington's Innovation Studio, which is their second location, aka Arlington Art Center once upon a time. It's their second location on the Amazon HQ2 campus. So it's in the lobby of an Amazon building, which, as someone who makes artwork that occasionally pokes at the surveillance dystopia, surveillance capitalism, kind of pokes at these issues a bit, I enjoyed being in the Amazon lobby. And I felt that I had a lot of really fruitful and interesting conversations with folks who work there. And while I was there in this, I think, 5-week residency, I got to make a mega project. And this was my mega project. It is a recreation of Hokusai's Great Wave off Kanagawa, made with a bunch of e-waste, much of which was working. So you might see there's a bunch of blue cable in there. That's a network cable, like Ethernet RJ45. It is a working computer network in this case. So there's a bunch of small computers on the board, and I used it to comment on product hype and surveillance products, and it sort of spied on you a bit as you approach the artwork. This is a new public artwork that I installed, gosh, I guess a little over a month ago now, installed in Buzzard Point, DC, in a new development there called The Stacks. So this was a team effort. It was fabricated. The metalwork was all done by Stephen R. Jones of Icebox Studios. But these are outdoor pieces that show on these bulbous screens. They show video, which is just kind of slow motion, and it looks like it's things that are very far away. And you peer in. It's sort of a reverse periscope, I guess. They're upside down for periscope. We're not going to worry about that. You peer in there. There's something every 25, 30 seconds, and it just changes by itself. And they're all things that look far away, but the conceit is that they were actually all filmed within 10 miles of the site. So it's sort of showing you hidden DC. Things like the Kenilworth Aquatic Gardens, or a heron stalking under the, South Capitol Street Bridge. So that's a fun permanent outdoor piece now. This is a piece that I've shown a few times around the DC area. It's called Pollination. And what it does is look for you. So this one, I think I have a video. Oh, these are a couple of stills showing what it does. So it is looking for faces, and when it finds a face, it turns it into a flower and shows it on these little screens, and it listens to your speech and then shows a live transcript of what it hears. And I'll flip back to the artwork here. So this piece here is shown photographed in Freight Gallery, which is an amazing venue that I encourage everyone to check out. Julia Bloom runs it out of Off the Beaten Track Artist Warehouse. I might have that name slightly wrong, probably close enough. Freight Gallery, that one's definitely right. Julia runs this gallery out of their 100-year-old freight elevator, and it's 2 hours once a month. And so I put this rolling flower-shaped artwork in an 100-year-old elevator and put it at the end of a long, dark hallway. Are y'all still, is my audio still good? Thumbs up. Cool.
Sounds great. And also,
Great.
Julia is a past presenter at the Art Clinic Online, so you can learn
Yes.
more about her program through her video.
Yes. Fabulous. And this piece is kind of fun. I just took this back from a show where it was at Glen Echo called Comic Relief. This artwork, you literally put a quarter into it, which it turns out that's actually a big ask these days. No one has a quarter anymore. So I provided a box of loaner quarters to the gallery. You put a quarter in, and it says stuff on it like tired, no pep, feet hurt, step up for a pickup, a tonic, a real treat. And you put a quarter in, and it plays you a song with meowing in it. And it shows you a cat picture because that way you can feel something. Yay! So that is insert 25 cents to feel something. The lettering on it is my homage to a classic boardwalk machine, which I swear there used to be one in Ocean City like 15, 20 years ago. I haven't seen it there for many years. I did see the machine again. The Relaxolator, I saw it at the Pinball Museum outside of, or in Vegas. But the Relaxolator used all this lettering, and I just lifted it and hand painted it onto my own steel box that I got off of eBay, and then cut all these holes in and put the lens in and stuff. But the Relaxolator was a classic machine where you stand on this dais and you put in a nickel and it jiggles your feet really fast. And so that helps with your pep if your feet hurt. Insert 25 cents to feel something. And part of the thing for me with this piece is I was thinking about like, there are so many interesting platforms and things that we use to occupy our time that are quote free, but like Facebook, Instagram, whatever. But the thing that you're paying with is your attention, your eyeballs, and your potential value to advertisers. And what is another currency of interest or currency of engagement on the internet? Cat pictures. So in this case, it's made more explicit. You pay and you receive the engagement. You receive the cat picture.
Chris, can you talk a little bit on this one in particular about kind of some of the construction, like the attention to detail, like even the 25 cents aspects? Are you kind of doing this in the studio as this kind of happenstance by some of the things you collect?
Totally. Yeah, this is a fun mixture. And I've delved a bit more into its, oh, you just used the AI word delve. Ooh, if you hear someone say delve, that probably means they're Chat GPT. Sorry. I'm not, I promise. The machine here, I talked a bit about its construction in a super long, hopefully interesting Washington Studio School talk. I'll give you the quick version, which is that I bought a steel box, which was used on a factory floor to hold like some buttons for I think like I want to say something like a press or something else that required a lot of oil. And I know that because of the amount of oil I had to clean out of the inside of this dang box. It was filthy. You know those like ads for oil spilled pelicans where they use Dawn and they like clean them very carefully? Yeah, that 10 reps of that. Dawn in the sink, the slop sink, just scrub, 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 heavy gloves, lots of oil. And that gave me the blue and cream colored paint on here. So all that stuff is kind of how it was. That is a found object. But then I cut some holes in it and painted some more stuff on it. So less of a found object now, I guess. I took a flashlight lens, which I'd bought as a new assembly off of a dubious importer. And the flashlight lens was this beautiful hemisphere of glass. And it's intended to be paired with a high wattage LED dye to make a big, powerful flashlight. And I took just the lens and put it in front of a little video screen of a type that I've used in a class called How to Add Video Screens to Your Artwork at the Washington Studio School. I attached it in front of the screen, hooked it up with a little computer, and then connected to this coin slot. This coin slot actually, I don't have more slides in this deck of it, but the coin slot's quite cheap looking. It's very poor quality. It's like super shiny fake plastic. And so the challenge for me was to make it look like a real vintage boardwalk machine, which likely would not have been plastic had it, so it wouldn't have survived that long for wear. So there's a lot of paint and wax on here. So a lot of my kind of practice is griming things, making them look vintage by adding paint. So in this case, I imagined that it was actually some sort of galvanized metal. So I used some white wax to kind of make it look a little bit zinkish, kind of aged it down with that. And then a bunch more grime of like a dark, like shoe polish, a little bit of sort of a light green chalk paint to give it a little bit of that kind of patina. And then a very bad piece of like, I don't know, like oily piece of paper that I glued on and penciled on and then erased it and penciled on again. And the lettering is also similar, just like paint it on, scrape half of it back off, paint it on again until it's legible, scrape it again, paint it. Just a process of creating and destroying and creating. Very alpha and omega. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Does that sort
Chris,
of get at?
the holes on the side you also created, and
Oh, yeah, those were original actually. So those are how it would have connected to the press. It had like a bunch of fittings on it that were removed before it came to me. So I just left them. I felt to my mind this sort of, that's great. And in fact, like if this were a real quote vending machine, there'd be like a coin panel. You'd put a key in, get your drawer, pull this drawer full of quarters out, and then dump out your quarters and cash it in. I don't have any of that. I also sort of imagined like, it would, I don't, that's a lot to ask of a gallery, right? If it fills up with quarters, I don't want to ask somebody to, okay, here's the key. You got to, I'm like, no. So instead, there's a juice bottle inside here, and its opening is lined up with one of those holes, and you pour the quarters out of the side by just taking the whole machine and turning it 90 degrees. It's good enough, like the engineering for artwork is different from engineering for engineering. It's not load bearing. Does that kind of get, I don't know. Yeah, cool. Here's another artwork. Here's another artwork called One to Many. This one's kind of fun. I'll show just a little bit behind the scenes here. So these are all individual clock displays. Each of them could show 12-hour time. It's an LED module. Like it has like 4 digits and a colon, maybe some dots. No dots, just colon. I don't even remember. There's a lot of them. There's more than 1,000 segments and something like 300 odd individual numbers. This actually made some like maker press among like maker nerds like me, because it for a while was like one of the bigger versions of this that people have done. And I used all these individual clock displays with my own circuit boards to create a sort of mega display. I think this will be a silent video kind of showing you what it does. It does it does whatever it feels like. I make artwork that's more like a cat than a dog. It just kind of does what it feels like. It doesn't come when called. But this particular artwork, if you squint right now, you might see sort of a person moving around a little bit. It's hard to make out, no doubt. But what this artwork does is show you countdowns that never quite reach 0. It shows you geometric increases, 2, then 4, then 8 balls plummeting from the heavens. Shows you fractal tree growing. And it also shows you clips from the film Metropolis. And all these for me are a little bit doom and gloom-ish, or sort of dwelling in that space of like, what if we are replaced by machines? Going against the intro here. Sorry, Michael. This is my one like dwelling in anxiety artwork, and I want it to make you anxious too. Sorry. So it's a large metallic ominous piece. It's in my studio now, kind of there, I guess. Yeah, it's a little too bright in here to see it clearly. That's okay. And here's just sort of like, just to give you the tactility of it. Like these are individual display modules that I've assembled into sort of 6-packs, and then they're all like panelized. And then these are attached on the back to circuit boards, which I designed. No one else had made this kind of thing before. So I designed these. There's 48 of these. They're connected together into 3 buses, totally maxing out the ability of a Raspberry Pi 3, which was the brand new one at the time. So it's kind of a fun technical thing, but I enjoy using it for artwork too. And here's the sort of, I want to say, quote, prototype, but it was its own independent artwork called Road Ahead, where I used my own custom circuit boards and a bunch of individual display digits. I think this piece sold through the WPA auction. But here's a little bit more of the tactility of that. So I assemble this stuff with like tweezers, which you can sort of see on the right-hand side of the frame. I assemble this stuff here in my studio with a heat gun, basically, a fancy heat gun, but for soldering, and then modified toaster oven. And here's the in progress shot. So here I've placed them all on the circuit boards using a magic gray goo that melts into solder when I put it in the toaster oven, but they're not yet cooked. So you can still see the goo. It will become shiny later on. And here's another temporary outdoor piece that I did with another artist named David Greenfieldboyce. He's cool guy. He puts on the Mount Pleasant Lantern Walk, which I guess just happened. It's the Sunday after daylight savings each year. But it's an amazing DIY lantern walk in the woods in Mount Pleasant. It's a heck of an event. I recommend highly anyone who's interested. You can also, in the weeks leading up to it, you can participate in making huge paper lanterns. So I thought, wow, who do I know who makes things that are outdoor and cool and glowing for this glow proposal I want to put together? So we worked together on an outdoor piece called Madness Method. This was the pandemic glow where it was outside for 3 months in the summer instead of 1 month in the winter, which was a switcheroo that happened a little bit late in the process, actually. Fun engineering challenge. Here's what it does. So they look random. They're just like from most directions, you're like, what is this? Cool. Okay, random. A bunch of weird glowing lanterns, but you start to think maybe there's some structure here. I don't know. And then from the right perspective, they all snap together into a pixel grid, which is used to show simple animations, like in this case, a rotating wireframe cube or these like gradients. We had even some very simple text, which you could kind of read going from one side to the other with like quotes about the universe. But this was an outdoor piece. It was fun and also fun in quotes because it was outside and like, the engineering, I mean, David designed these amazing boxes out of marine grade plywood, and we got everything aligned perfectly and trimmed up and trammeled and whatever the words are for that. And, one of the boxes kept dying, and I come out and replace the board inside it, which was a board that I made. Here's what those look like, by the way. So one of these boards kept dying, and I pull it out, and it's like kind of weird looking. It's a little ragged, and like there's like a lot of plastic involved with these, unfortunately. And so like the hot glue and the plastic wire all looks kind of chewed on almost. And I figured it out a week before the end. It was being eaten by ants. I'm not making that up. And then I fed the ants one more circuit board, and that kept it going through the last week. Sometimes you just got to feed the ants. Here's a little bit of scale. So like these boards here, you see all these little bits and bobs. Look at the smallest bits and bobs. This is the smallest bits and bob I work with. This is a surface mount resistor. That's a penny. This one's like 1.2 by 0.8 millimeters or something like that. They're small. It's actually more doable than you'd think, honestly. And I drink too much coffee, right? You might be, maybe you could tell. But like, even for people with like jittery hands, it's doable. You use like optical assistance. Like I use a microscope, a USB microscope that hooks up to my computer. And then for the most part, you don't have to get everything perfect because that magical gray goo I showed you earlier slurps it into place with capillary action when it gets hot. It's a lot of fun. I recommend it highly. Here's a little more process stuff. This is where I was trying to troubleshoot an unknown short on one of my own circuit boards. So these are just individual things. In this case, they've already been soldered, but if you look closely, you'll see a few little metal blobs kind of floating around. I don't know if you got my mouse cursor or not, but right in the middle, if you look below the white blob, there's a little tiny round thing, the bane of my existence. That is a little bit of extra solder that glooped together into a ball, and it's just rolling around on there. Maybe it shorts something out, maybe it doesn't. It was a process improvement was necessary on my part. But this is an example of kind of a scale that you end up working with when you're designing your own circuit boards. It's fun. I'd lay them out in like nerdy Illustrator, send off a file, and then I get back a physical thing in the mail a few weeks later. It's fun. But then I have to do all this stuff, like soldering them on. So on the left is the quote heat gun. It's called a rework station. It's a hot air gun. It's a very precise temperature controlled heat gun. And so I can use that to solder, unsolder, desolder, resolder, or just fully assemble circuit boards if I want. The oven's easier for big boards like this. And then on the right, I'm using an iron, which I don't honestly do that much of. I like the smaller scale surface mount stuff better, but on the right, I'm using an iron to track down a problem in this LED board. And it's displaying random colors. And you can see some of them have Sharpie over them and they're not lit up. That's because they are dead and I am replacing them. Process stuff. So this is another artwork. This one here, I'm just playing around with how like actually digital cameras aren't full color. They're actually sensing red or green or blue for each pixel and then smearing it all together. I did this backwards to make color gradients. So this this is the same artwork at two different moments. So it has this film that changes to become a diffuser, and it changes back and forth every 30 seconds or so. This is a piece that you can see behind me on the wall. It's a little flickery on Zoom, but this piece is called, depending on whether you pronounce the parenthetical P, I'm having a little fun here with my title. It's either slash or splash because it's a big diagonal shape and it's showing you water. Ha! It's 150 clips of my own water, some underwater, some not. I've started playing around with really cheap GoPros at some point. Did I mention I have a fancy photojournalism degree and I used to choose photographs for National Geographic? And also I got a Walmart grade GoPro and I throw it in the water and stuff happens. This is a piece called Campfire, which is an interactive piece. So the fun thing about it is that it is an alert beacon, like this super alarming thing. It's not really lit up most of the time, but the more people that touch its metal base, the more this sort of fake LED fire gets kindled. And you can have up to 3 people. The brighter, the more people, the brighter. And you can't cheat. You can't use 2 hands to get brighter than one because it's sensing your capacitive field. It is sensing your electricity, sort of, in the same way as your phone does. So when you touch your phone, it's using the same capacitive touch sensor. But I get to use it with a pie tin, which I turned upside down and bolted a forklift alert beacon onto. This is a piece called Daybreak. It's a whole bunch of really dirty old used truck marker light lenses that I bought in a huge grody batch off of eBay. And a couple of buckets of soapy water later, then I was like, wow, what do I do with all these plastic lenses? What kind of imagery can I show that only needs blue or red or yellow, or maybe these things kind of smeared together? Sunsets. So what this artwork does is show you one sunrise and sunset per minute. And it's all sort of randomized. If you squint right now, you'll see it's sort of like this disc, and you see the disc moving up and then it moves back down. And each position and sort of color scheme is randomized within the limits of the colored lenses, which I have to use in artwork. And then they're all on these custom aluminum circuit boards, which I designed. That was fun. I made a lot of mistakes. And then this like aluminum structure, which was equal parts engineering solution of dispersing the heat from the high current LEDs and also just shiny, cool looking stuff. Yeah.
Chris, I have a
Yeah.
quick question that kind of sparked, which is like, does the idea come first or the materials lead to the idea, or is it kind of haphazard? Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's the other.
Fantastic question. I'd love to say I have a beautiful plan and I enact the plan from step A to Z every single time. Absolutely not. I am using the tools and techniques of engineers, but in a very chaotic way. So in my head, I kind of split it up as like, I've got these sort of tools, these like methods, like using a video screen, using an alert beacon, and then I've got these materials like these truck marker light lenses, and maybe then also hooking them up with the circuit board so they can glow. And then I also have these sort of like big picture ideas, like in this case, the commodification of nature. And I just deal with these 3 things, the sort of tools, the materials, and the why or the meaning. They're all separate for me. And so I deal with them separately. I will make a device without knowing what the heck it's for. And I'll learn a tool without knowing why, or a technique. And I'll just dig into a topic without really knowing where it's going. And I just deal with them all separately. And then every now and then I have what I like to call R&D days, but really it means making a big mess on my studio floor, where I just put all these things and I just make a mess. And I have to emphasize the value of mess for someone whose brain works kind of like mine. Putting things randomly next to each other can be extremely fruitful. So I ended up putting these truck marker light lenses next to, the aluminum and thinking, wow, this kind of actually go. Interesting. So maybe I can use that with this technique. And then, oh, and that actually, I was thinking about doing this thing with the way that you just imagine that you can just go get the nature whenever you want the nature. And I'll go get a sunset. You don't like the sunset, wait a minute, get another. And these things end up combined for me, in some cases, almost to the last minute. So I've got a bunch around me, just all these like half-built machines, no idea what I'm going to do with them. And that's okay. And that's something I've learned about myself. Like, it's okay to make peace with the sort of quote chaos, that it's fine to have half-finished things for a long time. And then maybe their purpose emerges. like when I'm crashing on the 2 months that I have to build a whole show of neutrino themed artwork.
And Chris, do you have enough storage space for the things you scavenge?
No and yes. So yes, in the sense that I can easily expand to fill available spaces. No, in the sense that my current spaces are slightly too full. But I could add more, but I think I'm good where I'm at, honestly. I do have a storage unit that I have in my own just as an artistic tool. I have limited my storage unit to only be for finished artworks.
Oh, fabulous stuff.
Makes things easier. So I do actually not always pick up the cool looking thing from the side of the road. This piece here is another thing I picked up from the side of the road. Cool looking split log and a truck marker light, which I also found on the side of the road in this case. And I just thought it'd be fun to have something also in the similar theme, just commenting on the commodification of nature. And it's sort of a check engine light for Earth. So when it sees people moving around it after a while of not seeing motion, then it blinks this sort of distressing pattern. This one here is called Impressions. It's an edition piece, so there's a few of them. But it just shows like a sparkling version of any motion that it sees in front of it. So like you move and maybe you can kind of tell what you're seeing, maybe not, but it's just showing like a person moving from one side to the other on this really decrepit low res screen. This one here is morale is mandatory. So on this artwork, it's doing facial recognition and then deciding whether you're happy or not. And based off the number of smiling faces, it increments this little meter. This is actually using the hardware from a Google kit that was sold for school children at Target called the Google AIY Vision Kit. AIY like AI yourself, man. The AIY Vision Kit just taught kids how to use facial recognition and had all these pages and pages of documentation about how to do it and not a thing about when you should do it or why you shouldn't always do it. Found that interesting. Oh yeah, and this piece too, I sent it to a show in the UK and it went in the show and then on its way back to me, after I received it back, I realized that on import into the UK for the show, the UK customs had determined that it was some sort of lamp and put a sticker on it saying that they had inspected it and it was okay. So it was in the show for like 6 weeks with a big green sticker on the top saying it had been inspected. Process shot. So this was a perfectly fine voltmeter that I replaced the face on. So I just printed it after photoshopping it basically and cut it out, printed it on my photo printer, cut it out with an X-Acto knife. But, you know, I just enjoy the sort of magpie approach to materials where like if I like the way something looks, I'll just take it and then change it and make it my own a little bit, but not necessarily a whole lot. That's all it needs to be.
When you're acquiring, sorry, when you're acquiring things, like do you like where are you pulling your I guess nostalgia from? Like what kind, how do I frame this question better? Like how do you decide I need this type of like box or whatever to fit this concept or vice versa? Is it like for the last one, for the smiling faces one, like you just say, yes, like it clearly needs to be like facial recognition for that gauge. You know, like how did I mean to put those two together seems so incredible to me.
That's the fun for me. I like to imagine that there's I just sort of place these machines or artworks in time and I say, okay, what would it be like if there was facial recognition from the 40s? And that was the conceit of how I designed this piece. That I thought it would be interesting to sort of imagine if this technology had been around for a long time and that it had just been incorporated into our society. And so this is that informed the choice of the Bakelite voltmeter. It informed the choice of the particular lens, which, you know, I still needed a new construction M12 diameter screw mount lens, technically. But I found the one that kind of felt to me the most like it would have been from that era. And then I installed it in, I want to say, I think this is a relay enclosure that is still made and sold today, but of a design that has changed very little in a very long time. So part of it is for me just sort of quote reading up and just looking at a lot of different industrial things trying to place them in time and keeping a really sloppy digital sketchbook of all this stuff. So I have visual references to go back on them.
So, Chris, do you find that people look at this and try to smile to affect it?
Oh, yeah. The way that people interact with things like this is the real joy for me. Yeah, absolutely, people do. And you can get a big group and all smile, and then it goes from 0 to 3, like wang. It's fun. And
so how does it detect smiles?
It is using a piece of Google hardware and software that is doing live facial recognition using a fairly poorly trained model. So it has a computer inside. The computer is continuously looking for faces and analyzing each of them using a poorly trained model. And there's like part of a spiel I can go into on that about how the bad data it makes it a racist machine.
Wow.
That's a whole fun aspect. But essentially, it is just using what was state of the art maybe 5 or 10 years ago. It's doing modern things using this skin of a much older machine. And what I like about that is the combination of like it being fun to use, but then maybe you keep thinking about it and you're like, ugh, what if morale was mandatory? Like, what would it be like if CSRs had to be smiling all the time when they're on video chat and have that be measured? And that's now true. Like, that's a thing. Like, since I made this artwork, ugh.
Yes, it reminds me of that sign that used to circulate a few years ago that said the beatings will continue until morale is improved.
Thank you. Yes, 100%. Totally. Yeah. Yep. I just want to talk a little bit about this fun collab I've had going with Cece Cole McInturf, who's also here at Otis Street. She works with feather, fur, and bone, and a bunch of other organic found materials to make sort of all kinds of things. But in this case, she made these like, she made a suspended creature, which I put above the metal orb and then projected a bunch of my own sort of apocalyptic / chilling / interesting 1-bit video of natural places. I think I have a video. Let's see what that looks like. And then also projected above it are some words. And so this is Cece's like hanging creature and then my projections. And this is all at Freight Gallery again, Julia Bloom's project. And so it's showing words that are quite chilling and they're all part of this like long-term nuclear waste messaging, which was designed by government researchers to warn people away from nuclear waste for 10,000 years. So cool, chill, fun. We did a version of this at Freight Gallery. And then I just want to skip ahead to the version we just did at VisArts earlier this year. So this is a larger version with more creature, as you can see, a lot more room for beings from the future. And then I hung some wall hangings of the words, the Sandia message. And then also the sphere in the middle is different. The steel orb is 4 feet in diameter. And this gallery, the Common Grounds Gallery, which I found by being the kind of artist who reads the floor plan, I would encourage everyone to do the same. This gallery does not have a 4-foot wide door. It has a 3-foot wide door. What's my solution for this? I made a copy of half of the ball. So this is actually a gypsum copy, which is to say drywall compound and plaster and a whole bunch of other goops. And then I put powdered graphite on and burnished it to become almost as shiny. Artist solutions. And a little bit more detail from that. So on the left is Cece's one of 2 beings. So you can see it's mostly kind of gnarled branches or roots and then antler, which she's combined with wire to make this sort of form. And then on the right, I sprinkled this whole room with Manhattan Project and more recent nuclear nerd memorabilia. This is a large-scale reproduction of a well-known cesium-60 capsule, which is well-known on the internet because it contains the phrase, it is etched with the phrase, danger, radiation, drop and run, which is an instruction for you if you ever are close enough to read it. There's a little, I have a lot more slides and not a whole lot more time, so I'll just do a few more here, I think. This is an outdoor piece, which on the plaque, I was like, I'm just putting this out here as my message to you. This shows time. Each of these lights is double the duration of the one above it. So it starts at 1 second, 2 second, 4 second, 8 second. And by the bottom of the 32 lights, it's 68 years. So designing an artwork that should outlast me. And then in the plaque, I'm like, well, I'm putting it in the woods. We're going to see how it goes. I leave it up now to the sun and the rain and the winds. And it died like a month later. So I got to fix it. It's behind me in the studio for that reason. The nature of outdoor electronic artworks. I was at a cool residency recently. It's this former gold mine in the Black Hills. I got to go almost a mile underground to where they're doing science. As Michael alluded to in the intro, there's mostly studying neutrinos and also dark matter, both of which are things that we don't really know that much about. So I got to go down there. I took a half-day safety training to go down there. And I got to learn a whole lot about particle physics research and the lengths that it takes to go through. That's a particle accelerator on the left, and those are lead bricks on the right, which is used to encompass an extremely sensitive detector so that the Earth's own latent radiation does not interfere with it. The whole reason that they're this far below ground is to cut down on radiation from the heavens. Short version, artist grade physics explanation. They also had some disused parts of the gold mine, which I got to explore with them, which is just an amazing experience. I mean, they had 370 miles of tunnels that were used for extracting gold from the earth under the Black Hills, which was a sacred place for so many people for so long. And white people threw them out and stole the gold. So interesting place, no longer an active gold mine. That is an open hole on the left. It goes down, I think, 4 floors. And this is the actual former foundry, which that's where they melted gold bars, just to spell it out. Like they melted gold bars in this room. And I found a locker which still had someone's mirror in it from when the facility closed 20 years previously. And I made an artwork out of it. Just a fabulous, interesting place. They're doing new construction. They're digging new caverns for a huge thing called the Long Baseline Neutrino Facility. The thing on the right is a blast door from when they were blasting it out. So you walk through the tiny door and the big door. And I made a bunch of artwork out there about neutrinos. This is the hyperkinetic resource allocator, which is sort of exploring the way that scientific funding happens. Like, how do you decide which instruments to fund, which experiments to fund for something that's the total unknown? Like, you don't know whether it'll work or not. Like, there's like a huge range of what size of particle dark matter could be or what mass it has. I mean, there's no one even really knows. No one's successfully detected it yet. So when you're funding it, for example, how do you decide what to fund? Do you fund charismatic mega projects? Do you fund incremental tedium, or do you fund wildcards? And so I made this machine that lets you do that. Hyperkinetic is an out-of-date term for ADD, or ADHD. So it's like ADHD funding. You get to move the sliders around and decide funding on a time scale, which no one could really do. And then it shows 3 channels of my own video based off the sliders. This is what it used to be, so a little process stuff. So this was originally a power supply. It looked like this. It had letraset lettering. Anyone in here know what letraset was? It was like hand decal. You press the letters on from a sheet of letters that you bought. Kind of like when you're lettering your mailbox, you might buy like a sheet of letters. Well, this is how a lot of graphic design was done for decades. And this particular machine had letraset. So I didn't actually want to learn letraset well enough to do that competently myself for this machine. So instead I found the modern day TrueType font recreation, but it is using the same font for my version. Laser cutting it on the left, painting it on the right. If you keep the protective film on your acrylic and laser cut it and then engrave the letter with the laser and then hit it with a bit of spray paint, the paint goes into the recesses from the engraved lettering and stays after you peel off the film. Here's a little bit of what it does. Just shows this like overlapping video. This is neutrinos. Neutrino astronomers, how they have to go a mile underground by way of Randall Munro's XKCD/what if. Normal astronomers are looking at the heavens from the surface of the planet, and neutrino astronomers have to go a mile down. And this is why they're shooting a beam of neutrinos from Chicago at this facility in South Dakota, 800 miles away. They're building a huge set of detectors to do so. It's a wild thing. And this is where they're doing it. This is the Long Baseline Neutrino Facility. I'm in this cavern. It took so much process and sign off and work for me to be in this room, and I'm grateful to the facility for letting me do so. It was wild. Oh yeah, and I'm in the right-hand photo. That tiny dot there at the bottom of that's me at the other end of the room. Huge. Another artwork, just dwelling on what it's like to study tiny things. It shows you this message. What is it like to seek something unfathomably small? Perhaps doing so is a way of acknowledging your own tininess at the scale of the universe. I wrote that. This is another thing about neutrinos. The short version is that neutrinos randomly, seemingly, or for some reason that we don't know yet, they change between 3 different flavors. It'd be like if you bought chocolate ice cream at the store and on the way home it was strawberry. We don't know why that happens. That's why they're doing this beam of 800 miles long. So I created a pachinko machine or ish where you put a ball in and then the screen goes completely mirror. You can't see it. You can no longer watch its progress. I'm using this infinity mirror type method where you put one-way glass in front of a lit thing and then you turn off the lights and it's a mirror. So you can't see which of the 3 buckets it will emerge in. It's really fun to make a pachinko machine. It makes fabulous noise. A lot of hammering. Like it's literally me with nails and a hammer doing this. And this is another one where I set it in an era, right? Like I was like, oh, I think this should be from the like 50s, which was kind of when we were starting to see early, maybe a little optimistic, but I think maybe in the 60s we were starting to see this kind of machine imported in the US. So this is my version of what that would have been like if it was happening in the 50s. And at the top is Fermilab. The neutrino starts at Fermilab, and then at the bottom it ends up at the Sanford Underground Research Facility in South Dakota. I lay it out very poorly using my artist grade CAD software. I use Tinkercad, which is in a browser and it's free and anyone can do it. And it lets you make 3D constructions with your imagination and your mouse. And then just put the whole thing together with a whole lot of work. A little bit more process there. Painted a gradient fade with spray paint. Same masking laser cut process. And then one more process thing I'll go, and then I feel like I should stop spieling. This piece here is the Ungenauigkeit 01. Ungenauigkeit is the word for uncertainty. This is me embodying Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, which is the idea that you can know velocity or position of a particle, but you can't know both. You know one or you know the other. And so you turn the knob and one of the needles calms down, the other one keeps going cray-cray. That's the idea here. This is the finished artwork. Let me just go backwards a little bit in time. So this is step 0 where I acquired the box on eBay. You can do this too. Go buy a box. It's fun. It's probably dirty. You have to clean it with Dawn, as mentioned, in your slop sink. I bought 3, used 1. It's pretty dirty. I just don't know what the grime is. Like it came from a factory. The grime is probably not good for you. So I clean off the grime because it needs to be in a gallery and not kill people. And then I cut holes in it using a fairly sketchy hole saw. I do not recommend this hole saw. Ideally, I would use something a little more safe. In this case, I used PPE and the safe distance and cut these holes for my meter, put the meters in. It looks way too clean. Doesn't this thing look kind of cheap? And those are like plasticky looking and gross. No way. Dirt, add dirt. That makes it look old. So this is shoe polish and wax. I use colored wax. There's actually, I went to like a prop shop outside of like LA for movie studio people. And they had like this grime deodorant. It's like a deodorant stick, but it's just colored wax. And so you can put the goop on, just smear it on your set for you know, like Hollywood. You can find colored wax more easily than going to LA, but I found the format of that quite useful. So I used my deodorant of grime and put a bunch of goo on. Too much goo though, I think. So I took a bunch of it back off. And the way that you take it back off is just by cleaning it. You just like clean it like you would clean something in your house where you're like, ooh, I let that go a little long. We all know how to clean. Most of us do it. And then I thought, well, it still looks kind of cheap. Like, look closely at the dials, right? Watch the dials as they change back and forth. I thought it clearly still looks like plastic. So here I just painted on with a silver paint pen of a type that I call a Gundam marker, and so does a lot of the internet. They're used for painting Gundam models. Gundam markers are extremely fine detail paint pens, 0.5 millimeter. And I just used a silver one to paint in a way where metal would have worn through if it was a real metal meter instead of the cheap plastic one I am using. So I just painted metal onto where I thought metal should be if it had chipped off the paint, you know? So that's fake. I'll put back and forth. So that's the plastic, that's the metal, but it's not really metal, it's just paint.
So it's like a trompe-l'oeil kind of feel.
Yes, exactly.
Or antiquing is what it used to be
Yeah,
called.
yeah. And I feel like actually, so Bud Wilkinson, I think, is an artist in this area who does a whole lot of antiquing on and shares his results on Facebook. Glorious. It's really remarkable to see this kind of work being done. I am just faking it. I'm just learning a little bit as I go. But yeah, Trumple or fakery. And colored wax is another way to get this. Rub and buff is a great material. It's just like a wax with solvent and a whole bunch of like metal powder in a tube, and you just smear it on and smear it back off. And then the last step for me was I really thought if you bought a machine like this, it would have a little nameplate. So this also is the quote spoiler for people who are just looking at the artwork and trying to figure out what the heck they're looking at. The Heisenberg machine works. If you know enough particle physics or whatever physics or relatively whatever, you might be able to latch off of that and think, ah, okay, that was the concept. It doesn't
Yeah.
really matter.
Physics humor always goes over well.
Thank you. Yes, I thought so too. And you don't even need any of that. I hope. I try to make work that works whether you know why I made it or not. But it's fun to use it, and you get the sense of quelling or suppressing chaos, and that's enough for me. But I wanted to add my little spoiler here, so that's that. And this is CNC engraved in the next room. I have a small Shapeoko, which was given to me by the Catalytic Makerspace for a song after they closed. They were in Silver Spring. The person who operated that is an absolute gem and sold me this machine for very little money. Almost gave it. So I still have that machine. I've hacked it and modified it over the years. So I used it to engrave this nameplate, and then added a whole bunch of goo. So again, with the grime, black wax, and then use like a Windex or similar kind of solvent to remove the caked wax, and it sort of shears away in these sheets, which really feels like how it should feel when something like this is quite old. It makes it look more, I don't know, more patinated, I guess. It's not patinated at all. It's this brand new bronze-ish material, probably not even real bronze, but wax. Always with the wax. Another machine. These are cool asset tags that Surf let me use. They're from, like, they let me go through the old former gold mine facility, and there's a bunch of stuff there they cannot use for liability reasons because it's at least 20 years old, including these like asset tags, which were used to label miners' drills. Like, honestly, they never used them. So I did and made this machine out of it, which has a bunch of inscrutable numbers, and you press each of the buttons and eventually you find the quote right button, and the machine tells you that you did so, and then goes huzzah, and then it resets. This is the engraving process I mentioned a moment ago, and also cutting holes. There's just a lot of like tactility to it. You know, you get to know what these metals feel like, and when you're cutting too fast and dulling your bit, you can feel it. So I don't know, people imagine like CNC and 3D printing and things like that as being this like, oh, just press print. And it's really not like that. Like, you have to understand the tactility and the real physical things that you're working with. And it really helps a lot if you're just watching the thing like a hawk, or doing it with your hand on the machine, or just understanding what's happening. I made a little installation for there. These things, you touch them and they, similar to the campfire piece from earlier, it makes all of them light up. That's fun. Feels like you're making a particle collision. I do my own custom circuit boards, so this is one of them, has my name on it. I figure if there's this thing where like you'll send off a circuit board design, if it's something really cool and useful, you might find it 6 months later on like a web store. So I feel like I might as well put my name on it. So when someone knocks off my stuff, I'll be like, yeah. This material sourcing. This is the last piece I want to really talk about in depth. So this piece here, this is me scavenging, right? I'm scavenging at this underground research facility's above ground side. And this is an ore car, literally an ore car for gold ore filled with old trash. And I look in there and there's an ammo can, and I'm like, okay, let me send some emails. Can I have the ammo can? The answer turned out to be yes. And I made this piece, which is called Star Stuff. Earlier, I might have mentioned I found a locker in the foundry, which in this Blair Witchy moment here, as captured from my shaking GoPro, you can see I found this mirror in a locker, and someone at the end of the day in this gold foundry every day for however long checked the reflection in this locker to see how much goo they had on their face, and then went home. And I guess after the place closed, they didn't want their mirror anymore. And it's old. Like, this thing, it's gold plated for one. And it has like just incredibly decrepit like resin backing. And I just really bonded with this artifact. And I felt like I literally could see myself in it. Ha ha ha. But I wanted you to be able to see yourself in it too. And so I made this thing, which is a diorama. This is what this is my diorama recreation of a quote hallway in this underground facility. Like they have mine tracks. You literally ride mine cars around just to do your quote commute. Like that's just a normal day in the office there. And so I recreated it with a piece of model railroad track and a bunch of cement and goo and colors, and used a couple of tools to recreate the appearance of pipe. And then I hung this mirror just sort of suspended at the end of the quote hallway. And when you peer in there, you see yourself first. And then if you crane around, you see this sparkling view. And I don't have a video clip in here, but it shows like stars kind of shimmering away from you. And that's the star stuff of the piece's title, which is alluding to the famous quote that we are all made of star stuff. I think that's Feynman, right? But just this idea of you really kind of complete this artwork by looking at it. Like it is not complete until you look into it. And that we are all capable of doing this kind of thing. We could all be doing something analogous to this like absolutely wild research underground, or making artwork out of trash and you know, looking at artwork that is made of trash and enjoying it and thinking about it. And these are, I don't know, I just felt like there's this aspect of universality and openness, and that these are all things that we could be doing. Thus concludes my hard spiel. These are the shows that were mentioned earlier. And just a quick preview too of the steel ball. So this is hanging above my head right now on Zoom. And this is what it looks like on the right. And that's a typically messy view of my studio on the right. So I'm turning this thing into a quote voice assistant. And it is just going to be very annoying. And it will be on this, hanging above this sort of bed of pipe work, which kind of looks like the Windows pipe screensaver from way back. And saying annoying things like, today is International Cinnamon Day, Cinnamon Bun Day. I have ordered a 36 pack to be delivered in 2 hours. They're just things that you are like, Alexa, what are you doing? Or Siri or whatever. Not picking on anyone in particular here, just the idea of overbearing voice assistants. And there will be a big red button that you can press, and it slowly, quote, deletes it. But it's like, oh, why are you pressing that button? That button is deprecated. You do not need to press that button. And as you're slowly deleting it, and then it gets replaced with birdsong. So come see that in January. Thank you so much for listening to me spiel. I'm really grateful to you all, Michael, Janis, JJ, Mariana, and the Art Clinic Online. And I also should throw in a thank you to my incredibly patient partner and wife, Rachel, who has put up with an incredibly busy year after a busy year after a busy year after a busy year. So thank you.
Beautiful
Wow.
work. Yeah, I really find it to be so intellectual and poetic. And then there's an overlay of humor to it that makes it all easily accessible. I mean, that's really what I respond to is the humor in it, but it is just done so meticulously. That piece that you're standing in front of with that the grass waving, to me, I would just love to have that. Even if you were to get rid of everything else, I would just say that's beautiful. But you make it into a commentary, which makes it so much more depth to the piece.
Thank you. I'm honored. I really like being able to weave some sort of meaning that like that. And to me, it's almost not important that you get it. Like if the plaque fell off the wall and you didn't know it was called Elysium, hopefully it's still enough, right? Like that's the goal for me. I don't always get there, but I try for it.
Chris, can you talk
Wow.
a little bit about just the idea of like, do you spend your time like researching how to do something, or more like the just like how do you have all these ideas in your head, like to know about, I mean, physics and neutrinos, and like this is just like a wealth of knowledge that somehow you're kind of funneling into these projects that I think the average person shouldn't have that much knowledge to begin with. Like,
Yeah,
do you
right.
acquire it along the way, or do you just like
Right.
your background?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think that one thing I would advocate for is, as much as I am a highly disorganized person, I really like having a somewhat organized, I call it a sketchbook. I use a piece of software called Obsidian. You can use anything. It doesn't matter. It can be the notes app on your phone. It can be a sketchbook. It can be paper, like whatever works. But I just think I think the thing that works for me is being a bit of a magpie, where like when I find out another zany thing about the Manhattan Project in some other random text or whatever, then I can just throw it in my file of like, oh, the Manhattan Project stuff. Yeah, okay, I can get back to that later. So gathering little bits of thread from completely random sources and then sorting them sort of ad hoc as I go, and then later just realizing, oh, okay, actually, I feel like I might know enough about this. Like I might have learned enough about neutrinos to apply for this zany residency and not sound like a total fool. And I should say too, like I have a breadth-wise knowledge. I do not have deep depth on any of these issues or techniques. Like that's really not something I have. And that's okay. Like you don't
Yeah.
need to be an expert in these things, as long as you are delivering a good experience for someone looking at the art, which isn't, it doesn't have to be beautiful. It just
Yes.
has to be like thoughtful or like something that gives you something to
Wow.
chew on. As long as it's like a good experience for them, a good experience for the gallerist that you're inflicting it on, which I gotta say, technology and artwork, you gotta make sure that stuff really works. It's gotta be plug and play. You gotta plug it into the wall, maybe you wait a couple minutes, but I don't think it works to have complicated artwork with setup procedures and stuff like that,
Right.
because more than likely, just because of the simple facts of people trying their best every day, the artwork is not going to be working by the end of the show.
Right.
So make sure your artwork works. That's important. But if you have enough to get that, that's all you need. So,
Wow. And Chris, were you a physics nerd in high school and beyond?
I was dissuaded, probably rightly, from really pursuing the sciences. Not my deal. Yeah, honestly, I know I'm in it for the stories. Like I'm in it for the plot.
Yeah,
I'm in it for the zany, um, like the way that one type of neutrino was discovered was this whole interesting, complicated story about a physicist and a mathematician partnering up to install a vat of dry cleaning fluid inside this same gold mine. And the dry cleaning fluid was used to extrapolate the existence of solar neutrinos over this like crazy, like beg, borrow, like, and the results from it, they were expected a certain number. They got 1/3 of the number, right? They got 1/3 of the expected result. So everyone's like, your thing is wrong. It didn't work. Your thing didn't work. 35 years later, a different experiment determined that in fact, the 1/3 number was absolutely correct because it was detecting only one of three types. No one knew there were three types. And this same experiment got a Nobel 35 years later. But I like these stories. That's why I'm into this stuff. I find that interesting. And I'm no good at the physics or the math or the science or the engineering. I just do a whole lot of seriously though, like I get by and I ask friends if I have like super deep questions. These are things that have interested me, but I've not pursued them professionally. As close as I got was I worked on the science news desk at National Geographic for about 5 years on that desk, and then another 2.5 on the magazine.
Fantastic.
So I got to learn a lot about a little about a lot of things.
Yes.
So while I was there, I saw my first photo of a neutrino detector and it was like, whoa, there's this crazy underground sphere that's pitch black filled with shiny balls, and that's a science. What?
It's interesting. Like I keep thinking about Steve Wana, who was another kind of collaborator
Yeah.
for the ArcLight Online, and I kind of even imagine the two of you in the same room together. To be honest,
Oh, it
I
happens.
think
We've chatted quite a bit.
I can't even imagine what that's like. But when he was presenting, he kept thinking like, well, I have this idea. Now I need to go learn how to do this one task or this one method to kind of create work. And it was kind of to me, it was like most artists will learn a craft and then they'll create all these ideas that they will express through this craft. As a painter, that's how I kind of operate. But for him, it was the opposite. I imagine there's kind of something about that to you too, that you may have an idea or maybe you are just interested in something that you're not skilled at, so you just go and learn it. Is that kind of how it works for you?
Yeah, the internet's really good for this stuff these days. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to learn robots, but I really didn't do so until my New Year's resolution of 2012, I think. And I learned it all from educational resources for kids. So these days, there's nonprofit foundations. Arduino, well, they're changing form now. Of course, they're becoming capitalists, but they were educational nonprofits for children. Arduino and Raspberry Pi are two like things that you can go look up and buy. and they're cheap and they're intended for kids. They're a little bit complicated looking, but kids learn how to use them in like 5th and 6th grade. So I said, okay, I can learn this stuff. I mean, I'm a big kid. So I follow some YouTubes, and there's just a lot of really interesting visual learning materials out there now. And I've just kind of learned techniques where I need to. When I have time and bandwidth, I love to do a new technique or a new material or something for each piece. When I have 8 weeks to make 10 pieces, I don't do that. But when I have time, it is fun. Like Steve, yeah, I'm a junkie for learning new stuff. But I also deeply respect people who go deep. Like that's absolutely admirable. You know, it's a completely, in some ways it's a different thing, but like I don't know if it's harder to market that. Like when I say, oh, I know 100 different skills, it doesn't sound as impressive as when you say I've gone deep on painting for 100 years or something, but 100 paintings, whatever. They're just as impressive, and going deep is truly admirable. And I respect those who have the patience. So kudos.
And then this is also directed at Michael too. So someone who does glass for the
Yeah.
longest time, then learn how to become a figurative artist all of a sudden, or work with a collaboration and do action figures. I mean, like I am always encouraged to see artists learning and evolving constantly. So I admire both of you for so many reasons.
That guy, yeah.
So do I. This is brilliant. Thank you. You're also translating science for the average person, or for kids, or just like Michael said, you're just sort of getting to our brain superficially first, and then much deeper. Thank you
That's
so much. This is unbelievable.
oh,
I
that's
want
so
to
great
go
to
to the
hear.
studio.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I should mention too, we are having so Otis Street Arts Project in Mount Rainier is usually doors closed. Like you cannot walk in. Sorry.
Right.
That's just how we
Oh, I
roll.
see. Right.
We have like gallery shows on Saturdays, most of the time, but it's usually closed. So on one special Saturday, give me a second here to check my calendar, on December 13th, Saturday, December 13th, from 12 to 5 p.m. Um, we are doing our open studios, and it is kind of an awesome day. I'm going to be so tired at the end of it, but it's the happy tired, because I'm going to be talking to people all day long about just the art that is in progress. You can come see kind of how people are working. I'm here with so many other artists who are interesting. Uh, I really recommend coming out to this open studios on the 13th of December, 12 to 5 p.m. And it's
We'll
really
make
not
sure
fun.
that we'll make sure that this goes out in at least my newsletter, because I think vast majority of people in that area, Otis Street and in Glass School, of course, they're all collaborators for the Art Clinic Online, and have been, we want to make sure that as many people know about these kind of events, because they're just a gift to the viewers of art. So thank you for putting them together.
And y'all complete them. Thanks for
Oh,
doing this.
Chris, thank you so much for offering us your Saturday morning. And Michael, thank you so much for inviting Chris to be a part of our program. Um, Geez, wow, I don't know what to say.
Right. Me too.
I know what to say. Thank
I,
you.
I love the artist online, because you get to see a lot of different ways of working with materials.
I'm going to butcher our next guest's name, Elizabeta Sikorka, incredible artist coming up in 2 weeks, and I'll learn how to say her name by then. But thank you again. We'll see everyone in 2 weeks, unless there's any final things that we need to talk about. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.